Namaskar, welcome back to Media Scan. 7 attacks in just over a fortnight, and now seminars in Western campuses demanding to free Kashmir. Viewers, it is clear that our Western neighbor Pakistan is badly unnerved by the smooth conduct of polls in Jammu Kashmir and the establishment of the democratic process. So the question here on Media Scan this weekend: is Pakistan trying the old playbook in Naya Kashmir, and will it succeed? Before I come to our guests, a quick capsule on what's really going on.
The successful conduct of polls and formation of government has proved democracy is flourishing in Jammu and Kashmir. This has completely exposed Pakistan's hypocrisy and falsehood. Now, there seems to be a renewed effort from the Pakistan side to disturb peace in J&K. At least half a dozen terror attacks have been reported since the election. Soft targets like labourers as well as army convoys have been attacked. At the same time, Pakistan is now trying to revive the international debate over Kashmir. One such seminar is scheduled in mid-November in London by the Oxford Union. A senior Pakistani minister is likely to be the main speaker. Some invitees from India refuse to participate because of the biased agenda. There is indication of more such events in other Western campuses in coming days, but experts have pointed out that Pakistan is trying to flog a dead horse. Internationalizing the Kashmir issue is not going to work anymore.
So, with that quick capsule, I come to our guest for this evening. I have here with me Shiv Murari Sahai, top cop. He has been serving for long years in Jammu Kashmir and knows in and out of not only the Union territory, but also how Pakistan has been trying to push terror into the place continuously. Welcome to the DD studios, Shiv Murari Sahai. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Also with us, senior journalist Aditya Raj Kaul, joining me online. I may like to add that Aditya was one of the invitees to one of the seminars organized by the Oxford Union to be organized in a matter of some days. But looking at the biased agenda, Aditya declined to attend. And we do have reports that there were at least 3 other Indians, nationalist, patriotic people, who also refused to join the platform. So, why was it done? And is Pakistan desperate to internationalize the Kashmir issue again? But before that, I'll come to Shiv Murari Sahai. Sir, at least 13 people have been killed. That includes soft targets like people, laborers working on infra projects. But at the same time, there are also soldiers from the Rashtriya Rifles. Now, I'm not saying that there were no terror attacks prior to the elections. But this seems to be a renewed effort to show to the world that Jammu Kashmir is not peaceful, it is a disturbed area. What do you think?
The current attacks that have taken place, the bit of a spurt in the activities of terrorist organizations in Jammu and Kashmir, particularly starting from the Jammu region, should be actually looked at from a rather wider view, because it's not only about reviving terrorism in J&K, it's also on the larger play. You would have seen that post Galwan, we were forced to commit our troops to the line of actual control with China. And a lot of the territory in the Jammu region was vacated for that by the army. And using that opportunity. Now, Pakistan calibrates its activities in Jammu and Kashmir depending on what their international position is. So now that they are more comfortable, because they've got money from the IMF, etc., they would like to then get back to the Kashmir agenda. Now, what happens is that when you attack in mountainous areas, then the commitment of troops per terrorist is of a much higher proportion. So, you would say it's like 1:9, 1:15, because those are high mountainous areas. Kashmir, of course, is to a lesser degree. But when you have those attacks taking place, then you will be forced to pull back troops. This time we haven't done it, but that is the game plan. So we have to see it in that perspective.
So one question here, in the new situation vis-a-vis China, the LAC, now that there has been disengagement at 2 points definitely, and patrolling is, supposed to resume very shortly. Do you think it has a bearing on the current situation, or do you not see any relation between the two?
No, you see that overall game plan will remain. So, and I don't think we are in a position right now to be able to pull back anything from the Chinese border. You may have had a disengagement, you may have bringing down temperatures on the border, but that doesn't mean that you can be complacent about it. And
so, no reduction of troops is what you are saying?
I don't think that is going to happen. So,
right.
that is one thing that I mean, I can't second guess the government, but I would imagine that they would not like to reduce troops there, because it's nothing, I mean, you can't now be taken by surprise again. So, that is the whole issue. The important thing is that they will try to activate as much as it is possible. Now, the more I think worrying part is that the terrorists that have come in are very highly trained.
Yes.
So, they
we
kind
saw
of
in the Jammu region also.
Exactly. So, the kind of casualties that are inflicting are very high, and particularly of the armed forces. Of course, now they have started doing soft targets, because obviously the fear factor is there. And the problem with terrorism, it has got a disproportionate impact. One incident and the whole thing flares up.
Yes.
It creates a thing, because if you go back in time, then if you look at the 90s or 2001, in fact, was the worst year of terrorism in JNK.
The peak of
terrorism.
violence.
And that time the number of incidents were over 2000 incidents in a year. Now they are less than 100. So, statistically, I would say that there is a huge improvement in the situation, and particularly over the last couple of years. But yes, terror is terror.
Fine. Actually, Dara, you said you are seeing some, some fresh strategy, also different weapons coming in. And of course, there is the psychological impact, when laborers are killed, it will definitely have an impact on further projects, because there may be a fear factor. But there is also one thing which we have seen headline particularly this week, that is emergence of one or two new tanzeems trying to give it a local look. So, I'll come back to you on that, sir. But before that, if I can bring in our friend Aditya Raj Kaul here. Aditya, we were seeing your post saying that you were invited to a seminar or a discussion in a foreign campus which related to freedom of Kashmir. That used to be a regular thing some time back, but you declined to go there. Please tell us what it was about, and why would you decline when you have an opportunity to go and present India's standpoint at that forum?
Well, I was invited by the Oxford Union Society. In July this year, I received an email and a letter from them saying that they're organizing a debate on the motion that there should be an independent state of Jammu and Kashmir. Although I had reservations with the subject that had been chosen, I was completely opposed to it. But in the larger interest of a democratic debate, I chose to accept that. So immediately, within a few days, I sent them an email saying that I accept the invite and I'm ready to engage and put forth my viewpoint as an Indian, as a Kashmiri Pandit, as an aboriginal Kashmiri who has been a direct victim of the Pakistan-sponsored terrorism there, as also being a refugee in my own country. But gradually I came to know who were the other people, although I kept asking the organizers if they would let me know officially who the other members would be for the debate, but they refused to do so. And there was no response. And gradually, from my friends in London and in Oxford, I came to know that Khwaja Asif, the defense minister of Pakistan, was invited. We also came to know that Naz Shah, who is a Labour MP, completely anti-India, making statements very publicly anti-India, was also a panelist, which was okay. These two panelists were completely okay for me. I could have debated with them. But the third panelist was Muzammil Ayub Thakur, someone who has been for years involved in not just anti-India rhetoric, but who is NGO allegedly supplying money and resources to Pakistan-sponsored activities in Jammu and Kashmir. In the year 2022, there was a Hawala case registered against him. UAPA charges were also slapped against him. And, he has been on the run. So he is no better than a terrorist, actually financing and, trying to arrange anti-national activities and killings of ordinary Kashmiris in the Kashmir. So my only question is that how can I legitimize terrorism as a measure of foreign policy?
Fine.
when I go there and debate with him.
So why do you think, the fundamental question remains, why do you think such programs and seminars are being convened now, particularly, giving platform to someone who, if I'm not wrong, is also charged under UAPA?
First thing that many democracies, at least in our neighborhood, cannot digest the fact that India was able to successfully nullify Article 370 and 35A and restore peace and calm to a great extent in Jammu and Kashmir. Also, only day before yesterday, we had the latest report from the Tourism Department in Jammu and Kashmir, which said that 2.6 million tourists footfall has happened in Jammu and Kashmir. So the economic activity and progress and development is something that some of our Western neighbors do not want to digest. That's why we see a new wave of terror initially happening in Jammu. Just when the swearing-in ceremony of Prime Minister Modi was happening, we had the Riyasi terror attack in which 9 Hindu pilgrims were killed. Thereafter in Kathua, Doda, in Kashmir as well. In the recent days, we've had, Gagangir in Gandarbal. And of course, other terror attacks also taking place in which laborers, and you see very interestingly, Smitaji, the main target of the terrorists is this time very different. It's the economic activity, it's the defense infrastructure that is being used to supply arms and, people from Kashmir to Ladakh. So these tunnels that are being attacked and, Hindu laborers and engineers who have been, killed.
Okay, good point to, throw it to Mr. Sahai again. Sir, is it, we have seen soft targets being, killed and attacked. We saw pilgrims in Jammu being attacked just off Riyasi. But this particular targeting of infra projects, is it because the defense infrastructure has seen a phenomenal growth in Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh lately?
I think the Pakistani-based terrorist organizations, which are basically two main, that is Lashkar and Jaish-e-Mohammed. Jaish-e-Mohammed is slightly different in the sense that Lashkar is nothing but an extension of the Pakistani military establishment. Jaish-e-Mohammed has got a more ideological base, but essentially that too. You were talking about new organizations coming up. They are basically just different names to these two setups. Now that is been a long-term plan. It is not that for the first time that we are seeing them hit economic targets. We've even seen them attack BRO road workers when the roads were being constructed. The railway projects have always been targeted, and now of course again they've been doing it. So I think periodically they try to do it to slow down the economic process. But I think what is more important is that I think they also realize at one level that hitting at these economic targets in this manner will not really slow down the thing. It may, slow it down by a few weeks because labor will get scared, but
not substantially.
Not substantially. But I think what is more important for them is that they would like to make a statement.
Yes.
And it is in consonance with that statement that you talk about the international platforms being provided. We have to understand that that if you look at it in the context of why Pakistan was created and the geopolitical reason for its being created.
And that's going back 7 decades.
Yes, but that doesn't change, and that geopolitical thing with is that they would like that Jammu and Kashmir become part of that because it hits at the two-nation theory. So this is never gone, and if you look at it in that context, this will continue. Right. Our game will be as to how much can we keep Kashmir under control.
So just quickly in 2 lines, I'm curious about, see, immediately after abrogation of Article 370, we saw activities in the name of the TRF, the Revolutionary Front, trying to show that it is the Kashmiri youth who is, totally unsettled and angry and revolting, which was actually just a platform by the LET. Now, lately we are hearing of another new platform, which also claimed the Gagangir attack and is said to be floated by the Jaish-e-Mohammed rather than LET. Any input on that?
As I said, it's just basically different names to the same setup, because what happens is that they also calibrate as per the international pressure. So Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba are very Islamic kind of names. So they don't like it to look like Islamic terrorism. So then they get in acronyms like TRF and PAF and all that. Now they would probably like to give it another flavor again, because You see, that is how they calibrate to see which sentiment can be exploited. So the secular platforms are for an international audience, and the religious platforms are for a domestic audience. When I mean domestic, it is for local Kashmir. So at times they would like it to look as if it's a secular movement, political movement. At times they would like to make it look as if it's a religious movement. So it depends on how they are seeing it. So that's why they will give names to it. And that's about all that I can say that is the thing. But the main threat is just these two organizations.
So we do know, Aditya, that it's basically the LET and the Jaish, who are if I may say, the kind of umbrella platform that keep floating these new tanzeems here and there, trying to give them a localized name or a very revolutionary, ideological kind of a name. But do you think locals, the recruitment among locals is going up, or is it going down? Because we do have reports that a couple of organizations within the valley are now totally focused on recruiting fresh faces for the coming days.
Well, that's true. There are two things to it. One thing is that the recruitment has come down drastically. If you see the figures of the J&K police and the Indian Army, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, and especially in the areas of South Kashmir where Jamaat-e-Islami has been very active for years together, the recruitment numbers have come down, in fact, to even single digits very recently. But that does not mean that radicalization is over. The radicalization is very much active, and there is much more that one needs to do, the government of India as well as the security forces, to bring in de-radicalization. A lot of steps have been taken by the government of India already, not just for de-radicalization, but to channelize the energy of the youth towards better activities, including sporting activities, cinema, arts, liberal arts. That was completely missing from Kashmir to a large extent. There was fatwas issued against cinema halls. We have cinema halls now. We have other sporting activities. Recently, a huge international level cricket tournament happening live, in which the Chief Minister Omar Abdullah also went. That really...
And I think the winter sports will be coming very soon, once we have a good snowfall. Yeah.
That is also something that Pakistan is watching closely. Pakistan did not usually attack tourist places.
Yes.
But now an area 12 kilometers away from Gulmarg has been attacked. In fact, at least for a few hours, the gondola, the famous cable chair of Gulmarg, was also halted. That clearly indicates that Pakistan is baffled and Pakistan does not know what to do. At a time when Pakistan is facing massive terror attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in Balochistan, there is rebel movement of Pashtun Tahfuz movement, and the Baloch rebels asking for justice and independence from Pakistan's illegal occupation. And in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, there is a protest against the taking over of the natural resources. So clearly, Pakistan does not know what to do. There's a huge security and an economic challenge, and there is a political instability that continues ongoing in Pakistan.
Got it. But just one added to this, do you expect, like the event that you were telling us about in London, do you expect more such events to happen in the coming days, considering the fact that Pakistan seems desperate to renew the international debate over Kashmir?
Pakistan has been a failed state. I think there's a global consensus on that. And secondly, Smitaji, what I want to reiterate here is that Pakistan is becoming a non-permanent member of the UNSC, which they will be taking over on 1st of January. So one of the first motions that they will bring in will be a discussion on Kashmir. So propaganda, narrative setting, disinformation from Pakistan on Kashmir will certainly increase in the next few months. But what we also need to call out is the Western hypocrisy, not only on Kashmir, but overall on the government of India and India's sovereignty. On the Khalistani issues, for instance, where the Western countries are trying to poke their nose into internal affairs of India, or not taking action against, for instance, Khalistani terror organizations, designated groups, or even Lawrence Bishnoi gang members. Both Justin Trudeau and the American governments have all the extradition requests and intelligence from the government of India, Anisa Ajit Doval and the NIA, but are not acting against it.
They haven't considered even one request. They haven't considered even one request.
They haven't. These are tactics that are used by a lot of foreign democracies to arm twist India. But you've seen India has arrived and how, India has taken an independent position in the Russia-Ukraine war. It has said that an era of uninterrupted dialogue with Pakistan is over, and we will always have strategic autonomy and our own interest first. If America can look at their interest first, India will certainly look at their interests first. And when it comes to terrorism and separatism, there is a red line. If you cross that, India certainly will take strong action.
Okay, two things come out from your comments, Aditya, and I'll take them back to Mr. Sahai. Sir, one is, when our External Affairs Minister was traveling to Pakistan, there was a lot of, if I may use the word, planting going on to say that, we are now on the resumption of the peace process, etc. Our political establishment has made it very clear that there is no change in our stance. That is one. But secondly, seeing that Pakistan is going to become a non-permanent member in that process of rotation at the UNSC, do you see a bigger mainstreaming of Kashmir and Khalistan issues at the UNSC and other forum possible in the coming days?
Well, Pakistan definitely, as Aditya was saying, will want to rake up the Kashmir issue on the UN platform. I think everybody also understands that this is a more or less a dead issue, in the sense that we've made our position very clear, and the revocation of 370 was a very big statement. I think it had lost its meaning over a period of time. It may have been needed in the 1950s, but today it doesn't have any relevance. And so, looking at all that, yes, they would try to orchestrate this whole thing. But as I was mentioning earlier, we have to see it in a larger geopolitical context as to how do they pressurize India. Attending the Islamabad meeting for the SCO meeting, yes, we have to go because it's a multilateral organization, and that is a diplomatic nicety. But I think what was said over there and said again, I think is very clear where India stands on this situation. I think what is important is that we create economic and emotional linkages in Kashmir to stem the tide of radicalization.
Right.
Radicalization is born out of various reasons, and economics is a very strong part of it. So I think we are moving towards that direction. So if you look at it, for example, the extension of GST to the state of Jammu and Kashmir, that led to an economic integration. So that part has been done. Politically, yes, the integration is there. You had elections and all that. So I think that restoration and that linkage is being formed. And I think local recruitment will go down. You see, you cannot change the thinking of people overnight.
No, of course not.
It takes time. But I think the process is already on. And there is a certain amount of pragmatism of the youth in Kashmir. As they get more and more involved in their own lives and into the productive mainstream, I think this will all decline. But yes, I have not denied.
Countering radicalization is a larger challenge. But immediately in the coming days, there are apprehensions that perhaps more terror attacks may be, engineered in the valley and beyond the valley, just to make a point, as you were saying. Are you also apprehensive of the same thing?
Yes, I think this was waiting to happen. And I think they were all waiting for the elections to take place. They were probably hoping that the elections wouldn't go the way they did. But now that having happened, they will probably try to break up the issue, because then see, once the elections are done with such a high participation, the narrative becomes very different.
Of course, it's a failure of their narrative. But I am afraid we do not have much time left with us, sir. So I'll come back to Aditya on a very quick point. Aditya, we cannot wish away politics even when it is related to issues of internal security. And even in the context of these attacks, we have seen, I am observing a very interesting situation. Political parties which are based out of Jammu and Kashmir, such as the National Conference, PDP, even Sajad Loan's party, they are speaking very clearly targeting Pakistan for what it is trying to do, and speaking in one voice with the government of India, which should be the case. But interestingly, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, Congress party leader, has given a comment where he seems to give a safe passage to Pakistan and blame government of India for what is happening in the valley recently. How would you look at that?
Firstly, I'll say that it's a positive development that local politicians, especially Chief Minister Omar Abdullah, ever since he came in, has been giving a very positive, outlook, very positive statements. In fact, he also said that we are not fools to believe that Article 370 will be given back. It is something that the government of India, the Constitution, and the Supreme Court has already decided on, and we will fight on statehood, which is legitimate. The Home Minister is also assured that statehood on a particular day will be certainly returned to Jammu and Kashmir. But to play politics over terror, to play politics over national security, is not something that is expected from a leader of opposition. I think the more mature and calibrated response would have been to be aware that this is a moment where the nation has to stand together. And Rahul Gandhi should have, in fact, been with the government. He could have raised questions on the security situation, etc., under the ambit of the constitution and say that we stand with the security forces and the government of India in our fight against terrorism, and asked some very tough and legitimate questions to Pakistan as to why Pakistan has become a failed state and even their economy is completely sinking. They continue to have one point foreign agenda of targeting innocent Indians in Kashmir.
Right. Since you mentioned the statehood issue, I'll just give one line in the end to Mr. Sahai, because I'm seeing conflicting headlines on the issue, and since this is media scan, it's a good opportunity to have it cleared here. Sir, two kinds of headlines I have been reading this whole week on the question of statehood. One says it will be done very soon. The other set of headlines say that security experts, including our top the army leadership and other people, have informed the government that if a statehood is restored, too soon, it may completely do away or in a way undo the advantages that we have gained in the past 5 years. So where do you think the truth lies?
Well, I think there are varying opinions about the timing of when the statehood should be restored. I think that decision will be taken by the government depending on how they see the restoration of statehood will impact the ground situation. So I don't think we should second guess the government on this issue. They'll take their time and have their assessments. Experts who are looking into it. I'm sure it'll happen, but it'll happen at an opportune time.
But you do think the security concerns will be concern number one when the time comes to decide?
I think when we look at security, it is not only about how many terrorists are operating and how many have to be killed. You have to look at an overall perspective as to the statehood, the requirement of statehood and the impact it has on the population. So when you consider all these things, the timing will be then calibrated and accordingly they'll have to see when they need to restore it.
Roger. Aditya, you wanted to add something to that quickly?
Just one line. Just one line. I agree with Mr. Sahai completely that we should not second guess the government. They will do it eventually. They also have political considerations, obviously. But I will tell you one thing for sure. Even if the statehood is returned, the law and order, the police will remain with the center. And this is something that has to be done in national interest.
Okay, that's a big comment to make, and I'm sure it will trigger another round of debate. But I'm afraid for this episode, we've completely run out of time. So Aditya, thank you for sharing your inputs with us, your valuable inputs, your perspective.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining at such a short notice. And Mr. Sahai, it has been a pleasure to have you here in our studios. And I'm sure our viewers have gained from the in-depth perspective that you have shared with us. Thank you, gentlemen. As our guests have pointed out, perhaps Pakistan is unable to digest the harsh reality that successful polls were conducted in Jammu Kashmir without even a single call for boycott, and that could be the reason we are seeing a sudden spurt in terror as well as internationalizing of the issue. We shall keep our eyes focused on what happens in the coming days. Do join us next weekend for another issue of national importance. Till then, namaskar and have a great festival.